God bless and welcome to another edition of Sound Doctrine Ministries Bible Question of the Day. I'm the Sound Doc Minister Junior Vasquez, and today's Bible question came in on my website here, Sound Doctrine Ministries NY.com, and it has also have come up over on the YouTube videos that I have. What is the Sabbath? And I just want to look at a couple of scriptures. So obviously we're going to go back to see when it was ever first mentioned. I want to look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. And it says, "By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because it was the day the day that he rested from his work of creating all the creating that he had done." So that passage just gives us an idea, or just an understanding, that there's a day of rest. God even requires and desires a day of rest. God rested from his work. Now, that just doesn't mean that God is tired. It doesn't mean that God needed a break. But God set up a standard for what we will see is part of our interaction with God and what people should do. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 3 gives us a better description of the Sabbath. After some thousands of years have went by, there's a little bit more of a detailed description about it. It says, Leviticus 23:3 says, "There are 6 days when you may work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a day of sacred assembly. You are not to do any work wherever you live. It is a Sabbath to the Lord." So we see that there is a purpose for the Sabbath. It's not so much just a physical day of rest, but it's also a day of fellowship, a day of assembly, a day separated and set apart for God. Jesus touches on this topic also. He says in Mark chapter 2 verses 27 and 28, he says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath." He had an issue with the Pharisees and the religious rulers of that day, of doing healings on the Sabbath. And so Jesus points out, he says that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath, meaning man is not above the law of God. God separated and set apart a day for us. That day was made for us and not us for I'm saying it right. The Sabbath was made for man. So the reason why I bring a couple of passages up is because, number one, we need to understand what the Sabbath is. But I also want us to know that there are some controversial questions about the Sabbath that has even separated denominations and even religions. Some people still worship on Saturday. Some people choose to worship on Sunday, and they have their reasons to. And I'm going to touch on both reasons, but I did want to say this. The purpose of the Sabbath, what we must understand, is that God set that day up for a day for him. It's a day, as Leviticus 23 said, it's a day for us to be united with each other in the fellowship, and a day for God. And I like the Leviticus 23 chapter of passage, because it doesn't specifically give a day. It doesn't say Monday through Friday work, Saturday is your day of the Lord, and Sunday is the day to do your laundry. It doesn't get into all those details. But what it does say is 6 days you may work, and 1 day is for the Lord. And I think that's very important, because I don't think God is a God of he's not gonna. I don't think God is going to shun so many people out of the kingdom of heaven because the job that he blessed them with in the first place happens to make them work on a Sunday, and that their day off is a Tuesday or something like that. So I think that we have to understand the principle of the Sabbath, and not so much the specific little details that may separate. Okay, well, I can't take this job because it's on a Sunday. I've been through those type of things, and I've known people have gone through that also. And I think we have to look at, is God opening an opportunity? And God opened up many opportunities for me to work, to provide for my family, and I happen to have to work on Sundays for a little while. And God opened up the opportunity and allowed me to go to night service, and just different things. I think God will provide and make those things happen. But Paul writes in Colossians chapter 2, verse 16, he says, "Therefore do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath." And I think that that's kind of important, that we don't ever get stuck up on specifics. I think God is more about relationship rather than religion. And so the reason why people worship on a Saturday, I believe, is because they're still looking at the Old Testament law and how that was a Levitical law, that was a structured law that God gave them to worship on Saturday. But I think that the reason why Christians are worshiping on a Sunday is because the day of the Lord's resurrection was a Sunday. And it wasn't a whole thing about changing the law, because Jesus himself said that he didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. But it's just a dedication to the Lord. You know what, Lord, you resurrected on Sunday. Our salvation was perfected on that Sunday, and we're going to give you that same day. And I think that that's why that day is chosen. I truly think that Sunday is the day to worship, because of the day of the Lord, of the day of the Lord, the day that the Lord resurrected, excuse me. So I don't think that we ever need to specifically get caught up on a day. I think that, if you have a Wednesday night Bible study, if you have a Friday evening service, if you have a Saturday events, or Sunday, I think every day is the day that we should worship the Lord, and we should never be hung up on a specific day. But for us to understand what the Sabbath is, it's a specific day that we give to God. So hope that helps. Hope that answers the question. We can talk more on it if you guys ever want to reply to that. So I will catch you next time with some more videos. God bless.